God of War Ragnarok releases later this year on PC, and while I don't want to rain on anyone's excitement parade, I want to curb your expectations of what the name Ragnarok implies and the gravity that comes with it. What follows is a breakdown of the most problematic aspects of God of War Ragnarok's narrative and Old Norse culture references clashing with modern culture and its contrivances. For reference, I did not play the free Valhalla DLC, but I did watch the cutscenes, and it just seemed to refer to past God of War games, and the summaries online didn't sell me on participating in what is essentially fan service and seemed more focused on Kratos anyway. I completed God of War Ragnarok shortly after its release on the PS4 Pro, so I've had some time to marinate in my thoughts and feelings, but the bulk of the script was written in 2022. Let's begin. The premise is that we are at the end of Fimbulwinter, a prelude to the events of Ragnarok, meaning awful, mighty winter. And while we are given no specific time frame of what is supposed to be 3 years, Atreus is about 1.5 feet taller than he was in the previous game, and Kratos, Greek mythology transplant and familiar with patricide, largely remains the same. They are sledding through the Midgard wilderness until they are ambushed by Freya, whose son Balder was killed as a last resort by Kratos at the end of the last game to keep him from killing her for gifting him a life without feeling. Balder, formerly a beautiful and just god, is whittled down and adapted to a vengeance-seeking child whose death in both the games and Norse mythology sets Ragnarok in motion. Kratos and Atreus, revealed as Loki at the end of the 2018 game, escape and return to their home for rest and to see off the dog named Fenrir. Kratos naps and dreams about his Jotun wife, while Loki transforms into a ferocious bear, and then the two return home once the former catches up with the latter. Thor, god of thunder, appears on Kratos' front door demanding that the two talk about the death of his sons, Magni, felled by Kratos, and Modi, stabbed in the neck by Atreus/Loki, in an atypical behavioral outburst in the previous game. While I'm on that topic, God of War Ragnarok hopes that the player completely forgets about Atreus and Loki's illness, anger, affliction, whatever it is, completely because it is never brought up or referred to again. I thought it was due to Kratos being from Greek mythology or his mother's Jotun blood. Some theories online even ascribed his inner turmoil and lack of ability to control his powers as the reason for his illness, so when he is later revealed to be a god spawn, the illness just evaporates. Atreus Loki might as well have started over as an entirely new character for all the good yearning about something greater that he's destined for does him. Shortly after Thor sits down with his mead, Odin, voiced by Richard Schiff, makes his first appearance speaking with syntax and a cadence closer to that of an inner-city gangster or loan shark speaking on Balder. Even later to his ravens Hugin and Munin, bordering on constant Joss Whedon MCU dialogue. It is immediately apparent that Odin doesn't care much for Thor after disparaging his grandsons as useless, but not even his praises are unfitting for the wise Allfather. His appearance is also questionable, as his missing eye and robes are in keeping with Norse tradition and decentralized styles, although his beard volume was severely lacking in the same room as Thor and Kratos. Some words are shared about a deal to Kratos to please not kill any more gods and for Loki to stop looking for Tyr, the Norse god of war. They naturally refuse, as Kratos has made this his 9-to-5 occupation no matter how much he tries to deny even himself, and Thor and Kratos have an incredible bout of fists and lightning, but Thor eventually comes away victorious after he witnesses the super mode Kratos with Fist of Fury action.
How about peace? How does peace strike the esteemed, retired god of war? How about we just don't kill each other? How about you stay home, kick up your feet, seek no quarrel with me, and I'll have none with you. Of course, it means that that one has to stop his search for Tyr.
About time. I've been waiting for this. You're not from here. We got a tradition called blood payments. It means I get a piece of you for what you took from my family. You'll pick it up. Balder. Now show me what's this? Now we're talking! That's all you will find showing. But I am not my sons. And your boy, Allfather, has plans for him. There he is. There's the god of war. Consider your blood debt paid.
This is the catalyst for everything that happens in the game. Kratos and Atreus find Tyr in a Svartalfheim prison, who ends up being a pacifist, which you could already guess from his stories of travels to other cultures rather than conquests. Freya and Kratos bond over their dead children, and the Huldra brothers, Brock and Sindri, are highlights for a 20 to 30 hour experience. I even quite liked Thor and Odin's abusive relationship, painting the former as an alcoholic, as the latter barks at and criticizes him, even indirectly. I will not evaluate every bit of minutia and how it does and does not relate to Norse mythology, because that would be a tiresome exercise. Instead, I will focus on the most egregious examples of divergence from Norse mythology and its cultures and their oddities. Chief among them is Angrboda, and her relationship with Atreus. Now, I must inform, for context, that when this character was revealed, the whites got all in a huff over a brown girl, Jotun, daring to show up in their Norse game. Calls of race-swapping aplenty. Even though it is historically proven that the Vikings traded with Middle Eastern and African people, albeit not a significant amount, and the Varangian Guard were Vikings who traveled to Constantinople for work, so there was some mixing of cultures, and I didn't hear anyone point out inaccuracies to Thor and Loki being referred to as brothers constantly in the Marvel Cinematic Universe films, so the color of her skin was a non-issue, and the actress Leia de Leon Hayes played her well. Not as much of a non-issue as it is to Atreus, who never mentions the first black person he's ever witnessed in his life as far as we know. And no, Kratos doesn't count. Even though he is voiced by Christopher Judge, he is historically Greek, and the white skin comes from the ashes of his dead Greek family as a reminder for killing them. Her skin tone is not even worth a comment or question to him, and you could explain it away that he's so focused on his mission, but it's incredibly frustrating and speaks to the privilege of the writers who thought that a Norse boy would not have a few awkward interactions, given how common that is even in today's era. It's the mindset of, well, if he doesn't address it, then he approves of it implicitly, and that echoes of a very specific message in media where a white racist is turned magically not racist in a film where he hung out with a black man for a brief period of time, a la 48 Hours starring Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy, and going back so far as The Defiant Ones in 1958 starring Sidney Poitier and Tony Curtis. It's impressive just how race-blind the Norse boy is, when you consider that there is an extended fight scene with Angrboda's grandmother, Grilla, after Atreus Loki imbues a snake with a giant soul, becoming Jormungandr, and she too has dark skin. For an example of race awareness done right, you need only look at the last season of Attack on Titan, where isolated adults have questions about the rest of the world.
ところで、おにゃんぽこんはなんで肌が黒いのですか?
俺たちを作ったやつはこう考えた。いろんなやつがいた方が面白いってな。
Another 21st century peculiarity that made its way into God of War Ragnarok without an understanding of the Norse cultural context was the optional side mission Across the Realms. In it, Kratos will find the ballad of Yari and Somer, two male lovers who traveled the 9 realms separately and then eventually fell in love with each other, sharing dinners together that would last you for weeks. They would kiss in Jotunheim, and Freya, who is allied at this point, understandably asks how such a task was done so effortlessly, which is hand-waved away immediately after she asks. As they traveled, they realized that the destination became less important as it was traveling together. A sweet and tender tale that echoed in reality at the game's development studio, Santa Monica Studios. The real relationship was cut tragically short when one of them passed away during the game's development. This optional side mission was made to honor their relationship that one had for the other. It's not unusual in video games. People who died and get ghostly tombs in massively multiplayer online games like World of Warcraft, character vigils for the manga creator of Berserk, Kentaro Miura, and Destiny 2's Guardian game saw the Titan character class as the victors in honor of the untimely passing of series voice actor Lance Reddick. But for this story, which is optional but included nonetheless, Norse culture was the gray area choice of vehicle for this narrative because Viking Norse culture and mythology was largely homophobic.
Mimir, tell me more of Yari.
After leaving his family, he wandered the realms in search of something unnameable. But in all his wondrous travels, nothing satisfied him. Until he met another wanderer in search of something similar. Unnameable. He was called Somar.
The meeting of Yari and Somar.
Ah, right. So the two agreed traveling together might be beneficial.
And less lonely.
Aye. Their bond with each other grew quickly, and the meals they shared became legendary. It was said that to dine with them could sustain you for weeks.
That was the last of the ingredients.
We could take them back to the cauldron in Midgard.
Ergi and Ardgur are two Old Norse terms of insult denoting effeminacy or other unmanly behavior. Homosexuals may not have been killed or murdered, as Norse people had very strict views on those concepts as well, but they could have been very stigmatized and potentially ostracized from communities. As much of Old Norse culture is ready and available to discuss, there's some aspects that are still theorized or have yet to be unearthed by archaeologists. However, we do see in the sagas of Norse mythology that Loki was impregnated by a stallion and gave birth to the eight-legged horse Sleipnir, becoming Odin's trusted steed. But Loki is also the downfall and catalyst for Ragnarok of the Aesir and Vanir by the birth of Hel, Fenrir, and Jormungandr. What stuck out to me in playing this mission was how Mimir, the wise one, affixed to Kratos' waist as a severed head, and Freya made no mention or comment on the stigma of a homosexual relationship.
Gladly. It was said that Yari and Somar first shared a kiss in the fields of Jotunheim.
Oh? How'd they manage to reach Jotunheim?
Don't know. Point is, they went on countless expeditions, each location more beautiful than the last. But they found as they did, the destination became less important than simply traveling together.
And the unnameable thing?
It was home. Yari and Somar had found it in each other.
Mimir, you can say, is so enlightened that he would not have a leg to stand on, pun intended, but Freya, the Norse goddess of fertility, she just remains passively curious about the whole unraveling story. No objections written for the Freya actress Danielle Bisutti, or questions for why Kratos would be so accepting. Kratos being from Greek culture where homosexuality and bisexuality was a regular occurrence, it makes sense why he would not find anything queer about any of this. Maybe it reminded him of home. A clash of cultures, especially on a sensitive subject that we are still encountering today, would have gone a long way to explore the acceptance of one culture with the conflict and difficulty of another. And maybe Sony Santa Monica Studios didn't want to commit to all that politics, gender, sexual identity discussion in an optional mission, but this is what I mean when it comes to not addressing it. It normalizes it when it still isn't normalized in the greater sense of the word. By pretending that no one is going to have a different opinion or worldview, you don't create a dialogue, you provoke it without context. Which brings me to the most egregious part of God of War Ragnarok, the actual Ragnarok itself. It starts off relatively in earnest. Kratos and Atreus travel to Muspelheim to speak with Surtur and convince him to merge with his lover Sinmara and begin Ragnarok, each one holding each other's heart in their chest. If he doesn't, all the realms except Asgard will fall. Surtur is dismissive at the prospect of losing Sinmara, but when he sees Kratos' blades of chaos, weapons imbued with primordial fire from Greek mythology, that's when he begins to make steps to Ragnarok, saying, what does he have to live for? This was after declining Atreus' attempts at motivation. Manufactured and inorganic dialogue aside, off Kratos, Surtur, and Atreus go to the spark of the world where Muspelheim and Niflheim meet, where they discuss what will happen when they merge. Plenty of inconclusive musings and hypotheticals. Surtur eventually transfers his fire to the Blades of Chaos and instructs Kratos to stab him in Sinmara's cold heart to get Ragnarok. So far, so good, until you hear him announce that he is Ragnarok and that he awaits to assault Asgard until he hears the sounds of the Gjallarhorn, the fabled horn of Heimdall, who has been killed by Kratos. It's his modus operandi at this point. Kratos is then anointed to be the general of the other 8 realms and leads an offensive against Odin and the Asgardians in Einherjar, warriors who died and went to Valhalla to fight for Odin. Ragnarok, in Norse mythology proper, is a catastrophic event in which all Aesir and Vanir, creature and beast, Valkyrie, and Einherjar will perish. The world tree Yggdrasil quivers and groans in the wake of the remaining Jotun coming forth from Jotunheimr, the land of the giants, as well as the fire Jotnar arriving from Muspelheim. It is an all-out melee that Odin has been planning for, taking the strongest Midgard warriors for his army. In Voluspa, a Volva, which is a female seer, prophesies to Odin what would occur to humanity during this time. Credit to Ursula Drunke's translation. Brothers will fight and kill each other. Sisters' children will defile kinship. It is harsh in the world, whoredom rife, an axe age, a sword age, shields are riven, a wind age, a wolf age, before the world goes headlong. No man will have mercy on another. All hell breaks loose as Odin is swallowed alive by Fenrir, with his son Vithar avenging his father's death by tearing the wolf's jaws apart and stabbing it in the heart with a spear. Jormungandr, the world serpent, thrashes about in the battlefield, catching the attention of Thor, and with struggle he finally defeats the serpent, but not before the poison from its teeth kills Thor. It is, as the name Ragnarok implies, the twilight of the gods. Even in Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology, which many criticize for a very loose adaptation of its namesake, approaches the zenith of what Ragnarok is. Quote, all of them, giants and the dead and the burning sons of Muspel, will travel to the battle plain Vigrid. Vigrid is huge, 300 miles across. Fenris Wolf pads his way there also, and the Midgard serpent will navigate the flooded seas until it is too close to Vigrid. Then it will ride it up on the sand and force itself ashore. Only its head and the first mile or so of its body. Most of it will remain in the sea. They will form themselves into battle order. Surtur and the sons of Muspel will be there in flames. The warriors of Hel and Loki will be there from beneath the earth. The frost giants will be there. Hrim's troops, the mud freezing where they stand. Fenrir will be with them, and the Midgard serpent, the worst enemies that the mind can imagine, will be there that day. The great ash tree Yggdrasil, the world tree, will shake like a leaf in the wind, and the Aesir with them, the Einherjar, all the warriors who died good deaths in battle, will dress for war, and together they will ride out to Vigrid, the final battlefield. Odin will ride at the head of their company. His armor gleams, and he wears a golden helmet. Thor will ride beside him, Mjolnir in his hand. They reach the battlefield, and the final battle will begin. Odin makes straight for Fenrir the wolf, now grown so huge as to be beyond imagining. The Allfather grips Gungnir his spear in his fist. Thor will see that Odin is heading for the great wolf, and Thor will smile and whip his goats to greater speed, and he will head straight for the Midgard serpent, his hammer and his iron gauntlet.
Well, we got work to do.
You three, follow. Atreus. Freya, with me. Watch our flanks. To the war machines.
This way!
Why then is God of War Ragnarok content and sated with the barest, laziest interpretation of Ragnarok ever interpreted or adapted in the 21st century? Kratos and the side characters arrive at the base of Asgard to a fairly impressive spectacle of lasers and elves, and much of the action being implied as epic. But immediately after, Kratos jumps down into the trenches, completely divorced from any of what transpires and merely watches from afar. He is told what is happening by Freya and Mimir, but nothing about the combat Kratos finds himself in deviates from what he has been doing for the entirety of the rest of the game. Gameplay-wise for him, it's just another stroll through the battlefield.
Without Ragnarok, it's our only chance to break through the wall!
Princess Claw! You said only Surtur knew how to use it!
Let's pray I was wrong. Enemy behind you!
There may be some tricks to fool the player that what they are involved in is grander in scope visually, but there are no new or empowering moments that the player gets to be a part of during the battle itself.
There goes the Alpine reinforcements!
We are running out of armies.
And then Ragnarok, the conjoined Surtur and Sinmara makes their appearance, and again fighting and smashing in the distance as he is so far removed from the rest of the story. Then Kratos fights Thor in a satisfying rematch. Odin kills Thor, and the team of Freya, Kratos, and Atreus beats Odin with a side character entering and officially ending Odin's reign. Then Freyr drops in and tells the apparent victors that Ragnarok is here, and he stabs his broken sword into Odin's home base, and they are stuck.
It's Ragnarok. He's here. Time to go. Go where exactly?
You didn't exit?
How?
Let's try and stuff.
Angrboda comes in with her giant stuffed portal, and Atreus Loki pushes Kratos into the escape and cuts to white. And God of War Ragnarok won the Best Narrative of 2022 at the Game Awards. In Old Norse, we call that a gaunt, a jest.
The mortal Kratos seeks to destroy all that I have wrought. Brothers, put aside the petty grievances that have splintered us for so long. We will unite. We will stand together. And I will wipe out this plague. Olympus will prevail.
I've already talked to Helheim and back about how God of War's portrayal of Ragnarok fails, but its failures stretch far beyond even its own franchise portrayals of cataclysmic events. When Kratos was charging upon Mount Olympus with an army of titans, the remaining gods and goddesses had to set aside their differences and do battle with their common enemy, the son of Zeus. It's important to understand that the scale of just the death of individual gods and the consequences of Kratos' actions, contrasted by his continued rage and determination, makes it feel like not enough care and consideration was done for Norse mythology.
They will fall as well.
The death of Olympus means the death of us all.
Then prepare for your death, Poseidon.
My death will not lead you to Zeus.
That is where you are wrong.
With each death of a god, the oceans are raised, souls escape Hades, the sun is blocked by a thick blanket of darkened clouds. Even by the end, Kratos overlooks what he has done, and it is the most miserable, depressing vista of his own making. It truly is unfortunate that after God of War 2018 gave us a window into an entirely new mythology, cultures, customs, and possibilities, that it ended with just another post-Christian portrayal. Everyone survives and lives happily ever after. Atreus Loki will more than likely travel to new mythologies that the game developers at Sony Santa Monica are clearly more interested in pursuing after giving the most minimal of time and appreciation for stories and a culture that is already misunderstood and appropriated by modern interpretations and assumptions. Old Norse beliefs were decentralized and mostly overwritten by Saxon Christians, and with stories like God of War Ragnarok around, that is likely to continue.
What did you see in there, brother?
A path. One I had never imagined.
And what now?
There is much to do. Much to rebuild. Would you join me?
Aye.
We'll see to it.